Welcome to Season 3 of the Knack for Business podcast. Over 250 episodes strong, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit with fresh insights, networking gems, and creative strategies that elevate your game. Are you ready to discover what your Knack for Business truly is? Your hosts are Bernie Fransgrote from Creative Insight and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You, Inc.
Today's topic is turning ideas into influence. So from an audience perspective, how do you simplify your message so people actually understand it and take action? That's what Brian will dive into in this episode. Our guest today is Brian Wallace from NowSourcing. Brian, the founder and president of NowSourcing, an industry-leading content marketing agency known for turning complex ideas into simple, visual, and influential stories. With a sharp eye for innovation and strategy, Brian has been a Google Small Business Advisor since 2016, serves on the SXSW Advisory Board, and most recently joined Lexmark as an SMB advisor, or Small Medium Business Advisor, in 2023. He also co-founded the Innovate Summit, which has had its successful debut in May 2024. Brian, welcome, sir. Do you have a favorite quote or saying?
Favorite quote. I like to mix up the quotes because I enjoy being original and different and not just having an AI avatar of myself go on podcast after podcast. I love when people are able to not just pontificate and sit there in their ivory tower and their armchair analysis of the world, but rather when they are able to take that from hypothetical and esoteric into execution. So let's go with perfect is the enemy of the good, or as Steve Jobs rewrote that, real artist shit. Do I get 2 for 1?
A bonus round.
Thumbs up from Wayne. So there you go. I even threw a couple of SAT words in there.
It's a bonus round.
Yes, sir.
Backstory of NowSourcing. What made that magic come to life?
Pretty much. I can tell you all the dumb things that I did until then, and then we'll get to how it actually turned into something good. So everybody always thinks, oh, somebody's successful. So like you just magically are brilliant and wonderful at everything. As we know, there's usually quite a backstory to it. I'm a big fan and ascriber to the 10,000 hour rule. For those of you who don't know what that is, it basically means that you have to have 10. I only got 1 thumb up from Wayne that time, so he likes it, but I'll elaborate for everybody else. So the too long didn't read version of that is to achieve mastery at anything out there in the world, of all the world's knowledge, you basically need 10,000 hours of experience. Once upon a time, when I got out of college, I was a technologist for about the first 10 years of my career. I do not like to be a technologist by itself. I think too many conversations, whether we're talking about AI or cyber tech, as much as it is very beneficial for mankind and makes our lives easier, sometimes technology is just supposed to seamlessly, quietly run in the background, like the air conditioning and the refrigerator. And when it doesn't work, then we all hear about it. So rather than hiding in a corner, programming furiously and quoting acronyms to feel superior than humanity, I enjoy being a communicator. Yeah, you didn't warn Wayne that I was going to be in a trip. And for those of you who aren't looking at the visuals in the video, I'm helping narrate and I'm just having fun entertaining our hosts here. After being a technologist, or as I like to call myself, a recovering technologist for a decade, I needed to do something different. And I found that I'm a pretty good communicator. I understand things in a way that a lot of people don't. So I can look at things from a very complex thing where you almost think there aren't patterns and data and emotion and intuition and storytelling, and somehow weave that into something simpler to understand through long form visual communication. My first rendition of NowSourcing was not that, though. NowSourcing is actually a word that my wife and I invented when we started the company almost 19 years ago at this point. It was meant to be like an outsourced IT head or like a fractional CTO, CIO, vendor valuation, consolidation kind of thing. So not outsourcing or offshoring, but sourcing of now. We already had the name and we're like, all right, let's keep doing this. We had a crappy version 1 where we built websites and just did whatever our tech tasks. And then it's, but wait, I don't like being a technologist. Let me out of this jail. So now you're at the time of early social media when it was used for business. Remember like back in ye old internet days where brands like Coca-Cola literally would just have a Facebook profile even before there were Facebook pages? Not like way old like AOL and MySpace, but like when it started getting to be a business thing, right?
This sounds like a CD moment getting it in the mail.
100 hours for free. Mom, get off the phone. I'm trying to go on the internet and download a picture for the next 2 hours. Oh man, let's not relive those days. But we all remember them. So version 1, we were just like trying to figure out what we're doing in websites and tech. But version 2, we were very early on in the social media game where we actually got to do some really cool social media stuff for a bunch of big brands. And I would write for big websites like Mashable back when that was more powerful and relative to the world. And I was one of the guys on a website called Dig, which is digg.com. And it used to be like the front page of the internet, like what Reddit is now. If you would curate a story and get it promoted to the front page, whatever story it was would basically crash the web server. It was insanity to have that much power on the internet and just be a regular person. So I was one of 100 people that would regularly get stuff onto that page. Over time, I got to crystallize a bunch of lateral thought, notably that myself and my small team was really good at having a pulse for the internet, like a pulse like that, or as the kids do, where they go sheesh. Now that's old now. But in any case, having a sense for what the internet's appetite is, we were good storytellers and we were good at art. And then maybe there were like 1 or 2 people on the entire planet that were doing these things called infographics that nobody heard of yet. I saw this and I thought 2 things. 1, this is the future. And 2, we're not there yet. And I said, hi, everybody on the team, we're just going to do this from now on. And they're like, what the heck is an infographic? So we were the pioneers. We were probably like the 3rd place in the world to do it. And that is the current version of our business, which now these days usually rolls up as content marketing. But it was a moment and we had a journey, but there was definitely something along the timeline there that stuck.
One thing that in reading your bio, your Google business pages are often kind of either not done at all, completely random, or an afterthought. Not so in your world. Tell me more about that.
So Google is basically its own country. I think Google could just buy countries and trade them like baseball cards. It's one of the largest multi-headed companies in the entire world, and all the different interests that it does are enormous. So Google small business is not Google My Business, which is why I paused for a minute. I don't do anything in the Google My Business thing. Although I would agree with you, if you are especially a hyper-local business that wants foot traffic, it's essential. Fun fact, you ever Google something and you get that right-hand panel of the Google My Business thing, and then it shows a chart of if a company is busy or not. Let's say you just want to go to the burger store down the street. Have you ever looked at that?
No.
It's wild. So Google, I'm not going on my phone, but for those of you who aren't watching, I just pulled my cell phone out to not do what I'm not like texting or whatever. I'm just illustrating. So Google has this sensor device that's in your pocket while you're walking around through the hamburger joint. So it's collecting a bunch of real-time data and then it's aggregating that. This isn't like an official Google position. I'm pretty sure all this is like right there on the internet. If it's not, maybe we can cover up this part of the podcast. Just kidding.
I'm going to suspect you mentioned Bob's Burger Joint. You end up in Bob's Burger Joint within an hour or whatever the time frame
It's a
is.
pretty funny show, but
Someone's probably doing the math going, now that one and that one adds up to Bob's Burger Joint.
yeah, totally. So they're aggregating data of real-time users with phones because your phone is tracking your location history unless you're turning off a bunch of stuff. It knows when it's busy or not, and it'll show you a time graph so you know whether the place is busy or not, that it'll show you historical and it'll show you real time. But that has nothing to do with what I do.
But in a way it does. And
Sure.
I was going to swing back because
By all means.
the art of storytelling, infographics, you're relaying content information. When you're pushing out infographics, is it static or is it dynamic? In other words, real time, like almost like a dashboard going, like a heat map. Is that how you operate?
So that's one of the biggest problems in the world is when people don't agree on definitions of stuff. That is a lamp. These are eyeglasses, but what the heck is an infographic? An infographic means different things to different people. If you live within the Amazon product ecosystem, it's like a little product sheet. Or if you like Instagram, it's a tiny little thing. That's not really my world. My world, infographic is a compound word that means information graphic, by the way. So an infographic in my world is a long form data journalism piece that is equal parts but more of a graduated funnel of one, emotion, because that's how people think before they think. Two, storytelling, which concatenates the way that you think about stuff so you can remember things. And then three, backed up by data, or people don't trust you or shouldn't believe you because you're just making up lies on the spot. In addition to that, let's understand the spectrums. On one side of the spectrum, we have data visualization, which is basically I have a table of data and I need to make pretty charts. Obviously, there's a lot more work to it than that, and I'm not insulting it. But the other side of it is more of a visual that contains a lot of different elements, including data visualization, that is used to tell a comprehensive story. I don't think you can tell a story just by having a chart and visualizing it. It includes narrative, visuals, emotion, art, photography, all these different things. And now that we have the X and Y axis, the Z axis to spin it around is all the stuff about interactivity. Is it manually inputted and updated every so often? Is it being fed real-time dynamic data? A lot of our stuff is intentionally lo-fi because a lot of websites are very, I can say sucks, right? I'm just kidding. Thanks. I can say worse, but I wouldn't on a podcast. When it comes to the internet, a lot of websites are archaic on their back end. Like a bunch of national security stuff is written in COBOL that nobody's touched for decades. If you look behind the scenes at a lot of the modern web, that might have a nice slick coat of paint on the front, but some of the systems on the back ain't so pretty. So a lot of journalists and giant content management systems can't necessarily handle all of the different interactivity, or it's too heavy, or it's too complicated, or the person is not technical, or it doesn't work right on a different browser or on mobile. So there's a lot of technological cross-site testing that becomes very complicated when it could have just been a graphic. So I tell people all of that. The short version is pretty picture, good, gigantic monstrosity that could change program and break things, not necessarily great for the future. Both are important though.
So there used to be a saying that you had to write your website twice, once for your audience and once for the machines of your audience. Is that still as true as it was?
That is a complex question. There's so many different considerations. And now you have the way images are stored and served. There's extra layers of complexity that you have to do a ridiculous amount of testing to make sure that stuff is good and doesn't break. And then even after that, stuff's still going to evolve over time and it's still going to break. Like, I would challenge you, find something that's cool and interactive, put it in a time capsule for 5 years, and best of luck to you 5 years later to see if it's still working. So there's static stuff that's going to work because it's a picture. And then there's video stuff that's going to work because it's housed in a little video box. But the stuff in the middle sometimes is complicated. And by complicated, a lot.
How do you optimize? If I write content, I can optimize for SEO. I can make it searchable. Yep. But for a graphic or a video, unless there's a soundbite or something else, how do you optimize it so that it's findable, ranks high? Is it like flavor of the day? Today it's vanilla, tomorrow it's peanut butter brittle. Obviously, I'm using a food metaphor here. How do you make sure that your infographic, regardless how it's designed, is findable and is findable for that right audience? Because not everybody's going to want to see all the information.
Yep, absolutely. So let's do two different things. First, we're going to put our SEO hat yarmulke on, and then we're going to examine the anatomy, not the human anatomy, but the web anatomy. So let me walk you through an anatomy of a page where we would deliver an infographic as a magnet to get all of the press and SEO and get people talking and social and all the different ways, okay? So let's say we made an infographic for a company that makes, pick a subject.
Headphones.
Great. Okay. So we make an infographic where we tell the history and the future of headphones. First, we talk about cassettes, and they would break. Then we get to the Sony Walkman, and then we have the gigantic earmuffs. Then Apple changes the game and makes $50 billion on AirPods, and we throw them away, and then we spend another $200. Then we're going to talk about AI stuff, and then there's going to be a chip in your head, and it changes the stuff. And then there's passive and active listening. We can talk about the technology and the story. This is something very intimate because it's literally touching your skin and activating one of the 5 senses. And I would probably write a story about how our memories have like layers of sediment in them, right? So when you remember your first date, you remember the song that's playing, the wind moving, and it smells like something. So it's tactile, auditory, and fascinating. So I would weave together a big infographic like that. Then I would go to deploy it after I would write out all the story and visualize all the stuff. So it would probably live on a blog post or a landing page, depending on the architecture of the website. So there would be a header image to capture everybody's attention. There's a guy by the name of Jacob Nielsen, who's commonly referred to as the father of usability, that said 25 years ago or something that people don't read on the internet. He didn't mean that as an insult. People do something called chunking. Chunking makes you look for visual patterns because your brain and eyes are in panic mode. And they're like, what the heck am I supposed to look at? Oh, big text. Oh, pictures. Oh, good. Let's do that first. Let's look for bullet points, right? All those kinds of things. We're wired to ignore a lot of stuff in the trapdoor of the subconscious mind, and then we go through and more methodically look at it. Or if you ever looked at heat maps and eye tracking about the F pattern, where people look at like an F on the page and their navigation, all that stuff. So we would put together different elements, such as a header image and some text, and the graphic, which may be split up into different things, and we put all text on it. And then we would put what we call the blueprint, like an architectural blueprint of the infographic. So instead of just one gigantic image that Google isn't necessarily sure what to do with, but it actually is because of Google Lens. It's actually smarter than you think. We would have a duplicate backup of all the text and put that under it. And then we would also probably have an embed code. So let's say a journalist wanted to effortlessly take that piece, credit it, and use a copy of it on their site or the hot link to it. They could quickly copy and paste, maybe a couple other fancy trinkets on that page. So then when Google, the robots instead of the humans, so the robots to serve the humans until AI takes over, looks at the page, it's going to feel that entire anatomy. So both Googles and humans of the world are all happy and it's all good in the hood. Yeah.
Something I'm confused about, Brian. You
Okay.
mentioned Google.
The world.
You mentioned Lexmark. I
That's
don't know SXSW is. I know Fred's Plumbing.
Okay.
Do we design a world where I talk to Fred's Plumbing and he responds and Google talks to Google? Or where does the billion-dollar companies and the technician trying to run their business, where do they even apply the same rules?
The stuff I do with Google is Google small business. The reason I have big flashy brands in my bio is that they sound cool. If it says Brian helped Bob's Plumbing, you'd be like, okay, click, not interested for the podcast. Better luck next time, buddy. Maybe come back when you've got something cool to say.
Brian, you were interesting.
I try
You
to
could
be
have been
interesting.
Bob's Plumbing, you could have been Bob's ad firm. I would have picked up on
Honestly,
that.
it literally does not matter what size and shape of company. I will come up with some brilliant insight for them and make it notable. One of the most famous things we ever did on the history of the internet was for a painting company. And the week that it came out, it went so viral, Google and Adobe hired us on the spot. They're like, we don't know what you just did to that internet kid, but you're getting in this van and coming with us.
It's free candy on the side of the van.
Unmarked conversion van with no windows. Sign me up. There's candy and trench coat. All right, let's keep it clean, guys. I think we're losing a little bit of the point. Different companies of different shapes and sizes of industries, I think people are insane when they're like, this company is this industry, and this company is this size, and this company is this market. There is nothing new under the sun, which is also a wonderful quote. And everybody makes a big deal, how everybody's special, and every industry is different. And I don't know what the heck they're talking about because I work across all sorts of industries across the world. The way I look at it is everybody who has a business sells X to Y. You might have a product, you might have a service, you might have a hybrid, the 200-year-old multi-billion-dollar company, and you might be Joe's Plumbing just getting started at his basement. But at the other end of it, there's a customer that needs to hear about you. Most people throw too much money in stupid advertising at garbage. They force your eyeballs open with stupid ads that don't matter. Or you could make something that entertains and educates, like that thing with the painting company. We could have said, hey, we use better paint than the other guys, and we watch the Karate Kid and we do better brushstrokes than the other guys. What are we talking about? It's paint. You like quotes? It's boring. Why are we even talking about it? Why am I aggrandizing about paint? I'm getting there. Got to have the setup. Got to build it up. Anticipation. All right. instead of making a product comparison grid and idiotic nonsense, we had a particular opinion that people don't know how to pick, paint, colors, and style and interior design. Unless you're literally an interior designer or you work for the Pantone Institute, why would you know what I'm talking about? You're just busy trying to be Joe's plumber, right? What color is he putting on his walls? See what I did there? Yeah, there you go. So we said, why don't we do a long form visual piece about the psychology of color, which we can put in the show notes later? And that blew people's minds because it looked gorgeous. And then it taught them stuff without selling to them. And it said, people use the color blue because it's more productive in offices, and people use the color yellow because it makes babies cry. I don't know why that's important, but it seemed funny, so we added it in there and stuff like that. And then we talk about accent colors and the use of colors in branding. And then places like National Geographic started picking it up and Yahoo Homes, and it was all the rage. And people have used it in psychology textbooks and translated it into language after language. And it just lives forever in the internet. I would talk to people and I'd be like, hey, you ever been on Pinterest? They'd be like, yeah. I'm like, you ever see this? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, that's us. It's wild. If you put your brain to it, you can make anything interesting.
So tell me about Innovate Summit.
Just in case doing infographics and all this ball of fun wasn't enough, I and the team are a solution to a highly complex internet-based issue. We have a product, we have a service, we have a company, we have a market. Help us explain our product and service and industry to a market, get press, get SEO, all that. But that's internet. Now, what about in person? I'm probably a fun character in person, as are both you guys and our listeners. Over the years, I've become a bit of a super connector, although I hate that word. That's right up there with being authentic. But when I say that I'm a super connector, I don't mean that I just buy followers. If I go to a city, there's a bunch of people I know really well, and we're all going to get together. And I love doing this. And one day I'm going to write a book about the proper usage of influence and how people misunderstand it. With Innovate Summit, I have put together all sorts of interesting meetings and meetups where I'll come to a city, I'll bring a bunch of people together that don't even know each other. Sometimes we would do that for a breakfast, lunch, or dinner. When LinkedIn used to do a bunch of LinkedIn events, I was really popular bringing that all across the United States and even different parts of the world. Back when I lived in Louisville, Kentucky, I had a short event series called Think Big because I was encouraging everybody to think differently and more globally minded. And a couple of years ago, I had a very interesting thing happen. Because a lot of my company is well known and based in the Midwest of the United States, or like where the Midwest and the South reach. We don't have offices anymore. We're all remote these days. But we're well known in that bluegrass region of the country where all the world's bourbon is from. So we've done a bunch of really cool, really famous alcohol and bourbon kinds of work. We did a cool thing for Maker's Mark a bunch of years ago about the difference between bourbon and whiskey. We can show that example as well. We've actually seen it in the wild in bars. Really cool design aesthetic as well. One of the world's oldest bourbon companies was supposed to work with us, and one of my buddies was their head of marketing, and then they got acquired by private equity. However, what I did get was the wildest rabbit hole adventure that you're going to hear about now, where we got introduced to all the people running the town. It's the fourth largest city in Kentucky, and it's in Western Kentucky, which is actually in Central, not Eastern. For a town of 80,000 people, between public and private investment and hotels and grants and political stuff, somehow they built this ridiculous waterfront that's gorgeous. It's like a mile long, and it's like a $250 million project that has a gigantic convention center, beautiful fountains, one of the largest children's parks in the world, and the International Bluegrass Hall of Fame. And my buddy at the bourbon place is like, hey, meet all these guys. They want to get on the map and have more people come and do tourism and have all their bourbon and have all of the great barbecue and all the fun time things. Maybe do some investment and economic development. So I'm looking at this place. I'm like, this place looks unreal. And one day from Cincinnati, I drive over there, and it's not exciting to go to it, but once you're there, it's drop dead gorgeous. And I'm like, hey guys, I've been on South by Southwest's advisory board for half a decade. I'm circling it. I'm not going to leave you hanging. So that's one of the world's largest conferences that used to bring about $350 million a year to the economic ecosystem of Austin, Texas, and made it one of the largest cities in the country. you guys have something incredible. You have something that will blow people away. Sophisticated people from both coasts and all over the world will look at this place and say, this is incredible, what you've built. And I know a few people that would love to have an innovation festival. How about we do that? And they're like, what? We don't know them. I'm like, no, I know these people. So I hit up my global network and I said, I know I'm dragging you off to the middle of nowhere, but please come and trust me. We did that last May, and we're getting ready for the third week of May. It's going to be May 20th through the 22nd, and it will be the second annual Innovate Summit in Owensboro, Kentucky.
That is fantastic. You're taking a great concept and a great location.
And that is
And
called
you're-
unexpected delight, my friend. That's right.
I love those. It's always appreciated. From a marketing trend perspective, what are you seeing that's coming up on the horizon? We have TikTok and Instagram and then short YouTube videos, etc. What's on the horizon? What's around the door that'll spin the dial? To unexpected delight.
I think we are seeing a lot of global uncertainty due to politics, interest rates, home ownership defaults, a lot of quantifiable data, a lot of fear in the market, regional wars, a lot of stuff is going on in the world. And then we've got this big brother thing called AI, which I'm not always a fan of on face value. And I would probably use other choice words if we weren't doing a recording. Some of them seem like a lot of scams that all the NFT guys that lost all their money on the apes and other drawings come up with a new scam, and now they're an AI expert this year. So people and their delusional overconfidence that AI is suddenly going to replace marketing scares me. I know a lot of companies and agencies that are hurting, going out of business, and everybody's like, just fire your marketing team and type things into a chatbot. Okay, how's that going for you? So you're going to generate the same image that everybody else can do? I'm not saying all AI is bad. I'm not a Luddite. I don't sit in the dark. I am a technologist for the better part of the last, gosh, how old am I? Whatever. It's been a few decades. In any case.
It looks like you're in your late 20s.
Oh, stop it. Too gray for that. So at least too gray on the beard for that. So as the good gray beards say, wisdom is something that's acquired over time. But that's just a quote we made up on the spot. So I'm worried about people's over-reliance that AI is suddenly going to do it. But here's what I think is going to happen. Overfunded AI eventually is going to get caught spending too much money and not doing enough. And people are going to need brains to run it. AI is a tool, not a brain replacement. I predict a trend that people will start to rein that in and make better decisions. What else is going to be the future of marketing? I feel like that's taking up so much of the hype cycle right now. I think it's figuring out how to properly, ethically use it to make things that are notable and original. Because at the end of the day, if you make great creative, if you're doing it by hand, on a piece of paper, through Adobe Suite, or using AI, that shouldn't matter. But I do worry about everybody's over-reliance when it comes to that. Maybe that's not exactly, I'm usually a little more positive, but I don't like some of the things that are coming out of that world right now.
I think to go back to your previous example about paint, I would go typical way. This is how you promote paint. And there you go, watch it dry. Versus
here are the properties of paint. Hey, cool guys.
I think the cool part, and this is where the human interface really kicks in, is okay, this is typical. What's the atypical way of talking about paint? And you find the color blue does this, the color yellow is not good for the nursery. No.
But you remembered it, and that's the more important thing.
Absolutely.
What are you going to say? AI, please make an indelible mark in everybody's brain forever. Good luck with that.
Brian, something I'm fascinated by. You and I could talk crops and have fun and Burning Man and have a ball and keep up very entertained. Tell me who needs you the worst and should be literally picking up their cell phone to call you today.
Great question. People that have not figured out what their company does. So you ever hear explain it like I'm 5? A true expert knows how to explain it to the uninitiated. The problem that too many overconfident leaders, founders, inventors do is that they're brilliant idiots. There's a great word in German, but my German's not good, but it basically means like idiot savant. So people who overconfidently badly explain stuff seem to think that everybody else, their target market, their customer base, is also at that level of excellence of understanding, right? So let's say you're the top 1% in your game. if you're going to use all your messaging, marketing, visual storytelling, infographics, and whatever to speak at the 1% level, you're speaking to your competition, right? Think about a bell curve. Maybe the middle of that bell curve, if you're lucky, your sophisticated customer base has an intermediate understanding. Otherwise, they would build all your toaster ovens, right? What are we even talking about? So instead of torturing your prospective market with crap they don't even know, and you're literally just beating them over the head, making them feel stupid, maybe instead of going over their head, talk to them. This isn't rocket science. What do rocket scientists say? This is an AI? I don't know. We'll have to solve that one. Next podcast. Yep.
My wife says I'm half of an idiot savant.
Cool.
It's a true love affair.
You get to pick the half. Then you have to say that she's your better half. Checkmate.
Dangerous because he's in person. He can't run fast enough right now.
Be sure to say this and then run across the room.
Bring us into a closure piece here. If you had one message you want to deliver to people, how do we tell a story so the audience can receive it? What are the key elements that you want to relate to the solopreneur or small, medium business, Bob's Burgers or Bob's Plumbing?
There is a construct of understanding that every company needs to know. And that is that every company is a media company. You don't have to be reliant on the media, social, advertising, this, that, and the other thing. Look at a place like Red Bull. They would do music festivals and magazines and some guys jumping on the edge of space, and they became a cult of personality. Look at Liquid Death. It's water in a can. Why are we buying that? Their marketing is so good and they're hilarious. Do you know that they have albums on Spotify? There are people that are like, this is just a can of effing water that just says Liquid Death on it. And then they make an 80s album of people's negative comments. They're brilliant. Like when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. They're so smart because they understood what I just said, that they are a media company. Oh, but I'm not New York Times. I'm not the Wall Street Journal. Who cares? Is the traditional media doing great right now? A lot of it is getting crushed right now. So why can't everybody be interesting? So you could be Bob's Burgers. You could be Jimmy's Chicken Shack. You can be Joe's Plumbing. We need some other people. We need Mary's Landscaping.
Or Mary Lamb Chop.
Yeah, Mary's Lamb Chop. It's great. Oh man, we need to make a metaphor podcast or something. Maybe we can have some onomatopoeia or something. Anyways, so regardless of the size and shape that you are, if you're a small business, you need to make a really loud example. I know a buddy that became a gigantic YouTuber and he's a plumber. Good for him. Right? You have all sorts of wild stuff out there. So be interesting, be curious, and be different.
Perfect. Good flow.
It turns out I'm a superstar. Brian, how do we get a hold of you? If this resonates, how do we get a hold of you?
Well, if this doesn't resonate, I give up. I try to be interesting because that's the main thing that you need to leave people with, because that's the unexpected delight of a gift. So where people can reach me, I'm all over the socials, not a TikTok guy, but since there's too many people in the world named Brian Wallace, you can usually find me on all the socials at NowSourcing. I'm the most fun on LinkedIn. I'm one of those guys, but not like horrible LinkedIn, but do some pretty meaningful, cool stuff there. You can find our content marketing business at nowsourcing.com. We'd love to have you out on the waterfront of this place that you've never heard of, but you sure wish that you did. That website is innovatesummit.com, theinnovatesummit.com.
Thank you, Brian Wallace. My co-host, Wayne Pratt, you, the Knack for Business listeners. If you're looking for a way to make your marketing speak to your client base and not same old, Brian is the gent. In the Innovate Summit, it's another place to go for a great visit. And if you like bourbon, you're definitely set for that one.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVINSIHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter U.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people: Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert, Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host, Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space, and Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motive 8U Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.